Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the Magic of Myth FX Cave Hero Hilt from Veracity Labs and 7Chambers. Consists of Adam, Lewis, and Brian. And let's get started. So the hilt comes in this nicely designed box, which is becoming a trend for some of the higher end lightsabers. And if you can see under this is the assortment of parts that this kit comes with. An insane number of options that you can configure your hilt. Let's do a quick look at all of the various parts. Starting up top here, you have the static emitter. And this kit also comes with a 1-inch and a 7/8 inch FX emitter, which allows the blade to be retained within the hilt. Then you have two different sets of LED NeoPixel cups. These I believe are the 7/8 version, and then if I imagine you were to go to 1-inch, these are the bell cups. You probably could just put the assembly directly in without using these particular cups. And then moving down, you'll see here there are two sets of neck adapters. These are the ones in aluminum. These are brass, I believe, maybe bronze. And then you also have copper. And these really have a nice weight to them, so you can see nice and thick. And then you have two steel threaded inserts for the thin necks. The thin necks are notoriously known to be weak, just by design of by nature of its own design, but these threaded adapters I think will give the thin necks a ton of strength. Here you will also see it comes with two sets of grenades. So the one on the left is the cannon grenade. Let's see if it'll focus. And it has the thick rings, whereas the idealized grenade has the even rings throughout. So with this particular kit, this is the elite version. It comes with all of these options. If you do not need these many options, then they also have a standard kit for less money. But then the rear part of the hilt, there you go, comes with nice tri-ring, and then three different end caps. So you have the static accurate end cap, you have the standard vented end cap, and then the FX vented end cap, which has those unique cutouts that allow sound to escape while maintaining a fair amount of discretion with those particular ridges and holes to let sound out. And then comes with the control box, the canoe that sits inside. All of these are functional buttons, but they can be made to look static if you're not going the FX route to start with. You have the triangle plate, and there's another irregular plate that comes with this, or idealized plate I think that comes with this as well, that wasn't included, but everyone knows that, so those will be sent out soon. and then the green and red LEDs, the super tiny screws that comes with it, and then the very nicely designed card. You can see the blue substrate, darker in the middle, lighter on the edges. Very nicely done. And a ton, I mean really a ton of research went into this, so that will be included in the link in this video, so you guys can check that out and look at all of the research that was done. But that's the Hilt kit. So I'm going to walk you through how I plan to assemble this, just to give you an idea of how this all fits together. So let's get started. We'll start off with the box. So here, I don't insert this all the way. I'll leave it there for now. And then I'll work on the triangles. And you'll see why I do it this way in a second. So once I have the triangles prepped like that, I'll invert the box over it very carefully. It gets set in, and then I press down on the box, on the canoe, and it attaches to the box. And so you can see here, the reason I did that is because the top of the triangle plate gets sandwiched and locked in just under that rail. So there you go. So while I'm doing this, just want to let you guys know, when the kit comes, basically there's a bag of parts, and you could tell they came from the factory. There was a fair amount of machine oil, I would imagine, but just say processing oil on the various parts. So like what I do with everything that I receive, first thing I do is give everything a nice warm soapy bath to remove a lot of that oil, to make handling easier later on. And then all of the threads, so you can see all of these parts here there's a ton of threads here. I give everything a nice coat of a thin layer of grease, just to make sure that there's no burrs, all the parts fit together very smoothly, and I'm not gonna strip any sort of bolts or anything as you go through the assembly, because that's the last thing you want to do after getting a kit like this, is to have issues around strip bolts. So Alright, so that should wrap up the box assembly. Very straightforward. Clamp card should fit in right in between those rails. I could tell that the moment just out of the box it doesn't slide in smooth, so what I'll end up doing is sanding the edges here to just thin it down a little bit, but I'll do that a little bit later, so we'll put that off to the side for now. The tri-grain I will also do later, but basically what I plan to do here, just like with all of my other tri-rings, is needle nose pliers. They've already cut this out, so I'm not quite sure if, I don't think you need to cut that anymore, so you just need to spread it out with some needle nose pliers, get it inset, and then I'll probably use a vise to clamp down both sides equally and squeeze it in, but I'll do that a little bit later. So we'll set that off to the side, and then now you have your emitters, or sorry, not your emitters, your end caps. So since I'm going for a Canon style, I'll use the Canon end cap, and this is really simple, just everything is screwed together. And then these two guys I'll save for another day, and I will also be, let's see, going with the Canon grenade, so that just gets slotted in here. I know 7Chambers and Veracity Labs, they're coming out with, well, maybe I'll do this for a second, coming out with a crystal chamber as well, and from the photos that I've seen and the discussions, the chamber will screw in directly into here, and there's enough threads left where you can still screw this in on top of it. So that should be very interesting. I think a lot of people are looking forward to see how that turns out. Okay, there you go. And then so now we'll look at the thin neck. So for my final version, I will be using the aluminum neck, and then I will be painting this with Ace Antique Gold, just like I believe how some of the reference images depict. But for today's video, I will use the copper neck, and you'll see why in a second. Let's see how we get this assembled. Let's use this one. So the cup screws into the steel insert. We'll take the bell housing. That's inserted there. Goes together there. So in this case, I am holding the neck firm, and I am twisting the grenade, as you can see. There's a couple of different ways you could assemble this. It just depends on what your flavor is and what you're actually doing, because if you're assembling this from an FX perspective, this may not be the best way to do it. But what I found, at least in the short time that I had this, is if I hold the emitter and neck assembly together, and I screw and if I twist the grenade, it makes it easy just to get to this point, and then we're able to finish it off. Once I get the neck on here, I'll twist the neck on and then finish it off. There we go, nice and tight. Since I don't hit anything, there's the inside of the bell housing with the LED insert. There you go. And then if we go with the static emitter plate, before I put this on, you'll see here there is a grub screw. That is your blade retention, and very innovative design. It gets hidden underneath the emitter, so you don't see it. And of course that doesn't matter for the static emitter, but you know, it makes more sense when you have a blade in. But they built that into their design, so that's a nice feature. And there you go. That is a quick look at how the Magic of Myth Luke Hero is assembled. All of these other parts are extras, and what we can do now is do a quick little assembly of these other guys, but let me see here. We'll choose the brass one for this side, and these are all meant to be hot swappable, presuming you're using pogo pins and such that allows all of the parts to be easily disconnected once the final assembly is completed, and if you are using this as, or building this out as a FX hilt. But I think the fact that you have primarily an idealized and cannon grenade allows people to move between the two if they really choose to. I think for most, once you have a certain version, if you want to call it, that you desire, you probably won't be going back and forth that much. That's my guess. So there's that assembly there, and then let's say you wanted the 7/8 emitter. Okay, thanks for following along up until this point. The next, once I move some of these items away, I will show how the Magic of the Myth hero compares to an Anakin Skywalker and a KRSabers. So just give me a minute to switch things over. Alright guys, so what we have here are, let's see here, this is the Magic of the Myth hero that I just showed the assembly on. This is the Anakin Starkiller hero, and this is, I believe, the second generation or second run of the KRSabers hero. So all of these are lined up exactly on the same line here. Let's see, perfectly lined up there. And on the emitter side of things, the Anakin Starkiller and the MoM hero look to be the exact same. I would imagine that because they were designed together. The KR hero, you can see, is just a tad shorter, maybe half an inch or so, quarter of an inch. Do a little bit more comparison. So let's take a look at the Magic of the Myth hero. One of the things I've noticed here is they included the detail around the front portion of this. You can see they included the detail of the grub screw. They included this divot point, and you could read more about this, but there's a couple of different ways you could leave it as is. Some people think that there was a set screw that was then later ground down, but you could read all about the research that went into this and to make your own decision. But it's nice that they included that particular feature. For the Anakin, they did not include that option. And with the KR, you can see there's the blade retention screw, because in this case the center part of this comes out and serves as a blade plug. Okay, so that's one thing to note too. The Magic of the Myth hilt, this is the static emitter. If you're using one of the FX emitters, you do not have a blade plug. So the only way you would get a blade plug per se is to switch to the static emitter. So moving down, all of the black here is anodized, so that's nice, just cuts down on the amount of work. I think the anodization is very nice, very clean. The machining of the grenade section looks to be very nice. You get to the control box. The hilt side itself is machined very well overall. From a rail standpoint, this bottom part, and it'll be clear on the when I compare this to the Anakin one, but this bottom section here will need to get painted gray, and the top part here, either I'm going to leave it as is, I might paint that the Ace Antique gold, or I might use some gold foil to finish out that piece, but it's very nicely done. The machining on this, I would say, is very, very nice. Okay. I think on the individual parts, you can see that there are some scratches. Not a whole lot. I believe they can all be buffed out, but I think the packaging of the individual parts probably could be improved upon. But overall, that's how that looks. Not sure. Let's see what's the best way to do this. Alright, those are the emitters. So Magic of Myth, Anakin, KR. KR comes with, I think, a copper neck. That's the only option. The Anakin comes with an aluminum neck, but that was painted with the Ace Antique Gold, which I really do like that color, and that's what I will end up doing when I install the aluminum neck, and I'll be painting that. You could see between those two guys, you can see the detail up top with the KR. There you go, you see it there, but relative to the rest of the hilt, you could see that it's really not lined up to the box, so that part shows up differently relative to the box. There you go. The Anakin has the uneven rings, just like the Magic of the Myth option. I'm not sure, you could tell this one's a little bit shinier, this one is a little bit duller. Now that might just be because I've worked on this, because the Anakin comes without the black paint in the grooves. I had to go through and paint that, I believe it was a satin Krylon, and then later on I removed the paint by sanding the grenade, so that's probably what makes it look a little bit duller or more satin finish versus the shinier, glossier finish. The KRSabers, this one comes anodized as well from KR, but you can see here it has the idealized rings. So if you want to compare, that's how the two idealized rings from KR and from the Magic of the Myth, they compare to each other. They look to be fairly spaced the same. Yeah. The rings on this one might be just a tad thicker. It's not to say it's good or bad, it's just an observation. Okay. And then now moving to the control boxes, so let me flip this around so you can see here how all of the control boxes appear. So this one is KR, Anakin, Magic of the Myth. Alright, so let's take a look at the cards themselves. These two clamp cards are from Sloth Furnace. Okay, so when you look at them side by side, the traces are on point with each other, relatively speaking. So I don't think there's any major issues there. You do see that the Magic of the Myth has the blue substrate here all throughout. That's the difference. And because of that, I think you also see that there is a darker inner to this and a lighter blue. Darker blue on the inner, lighter blue on the outer. And the unique thing about the Magic of the Myth clamp card is you have the idealized clean version on one side, and then you have a little bit of the canon version on the other side. It has some of these irregular spots and whatnot. So, and it is the same dark blue substrate all across. So you see the two-tone color on what looks to be the idealized version or side of the card. So there you go. Okay, and then I think moving down to the end of this, all of these have the right relative details across. I think the finish on the KR is much more matte throughout the upper and say lower sections here. Both Magic of the Myth and the Anakin, they have a little bit of a shinier finish on the valleys versus more of a satin finish on the upper sections there. Let's see, from a pommel. Okay, from the end cap perspective, you can see how they all compare. They all have the dimples at the bottom. The Magic of the Myth is basically smooth all around. The Anakin has a little bit more of the ridge detail that you can see there. And then the KR one is vented. But they're all nicely finished. They look similar, but they're also very different. So the KR has a little bit of a bevel to that. The Anakin has the detail around the circumference of the hole, and this one is flat. So one of the things I wanted to try out is, are these parts, are the thread patterns interchangeable? So this is the Anakin Starkiller. Let's see here if I took off that end cap. Let's say replaced it with this fit. And it looks like it does. Okay, so that is a Magic of Myth pommel end cap on an Anakin hilt. And then let's see if the grenade fits. I would guess that they would, because there was some collaboration between the two teams in the initial design of this. And yeah, look at that. So the grenades do fit. So this is a Magic of Myth grenade on a Anakin rear hilt with Magic of the Myth vented box. Let's keep going. Let's see what the neck situation looks like. But I just want to see if the neck will fit. So that's the Anakin one. Take the same kind of brass color. And look at that. That fits as well. Okay, there you have it. Let me check out the KR. So this is the KRSabers, the end cap. We'll take the FX vented pommel, and no, that does not. The KR is much larger in diameter. You can see that thing just slides right in. So I'm not going to bother going through the rest of this to test for interchangeability, because just with that, the likelihood is that they won't be interchangeable. So anyway, there's a quick look at how this compares to the other heroes. They're all fantastic in my mind, but I think at this point, the Magic of the Myth probably is my favorite. It has the most options, very well designed, has the idealized cannon grenades, so it's a much more complete package. And this is probably the one that I'll be keeping in my collection. So, alright, everyone, thank you for following along, and take care.